Hi, Jack Canfield here again with another episode of Talking About Success. My guest today is Bob Butera, one of the few PhD yoga therapists in the country, founder of Yoga Life Institute in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. Bob is going to be here today to talk about his latest book called Yoga Therapy for Stress and Anxiety. And he's got a couple of other books here, Meditation for Your Life, Pure Heart of Yoga. And you also published the Yoga Living magazine in the Philadelphia, Southern New Jersey area, I would take it, which I just glanced through. A lot of cool stuff in here. But today we're going to be talking about this book. And before we get into that, I'll just tell you a little more about Bob. In 1989, Bob was trained as a yoga therapist at the Yoga Institute of Mumbai, India. And Bob has trained over 1,000 yoga teachers and leads one of the country's first nationally accredited yoga therapy programs. And having lived in Japan, Taiwan, and India, Bob has a unique perspective, allowing him to translate the essence of Eastern practices into a Western context. So that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff you've done in a short life here. So how were you introduced to yoga? I find that's a really interesting story. Share that with us.
Well, I would say almost two parts. The funny part is, while in Taiwan, I learned yoga from an Irishman. And it's kind of funny.
That is funny.
So he was a monk in what was later to be found to be one of the yoga cults. On a lower level, but still they try to indoctrinate people. He taught me every week, private yoga class, taught me how to meditate, never pressured me, none of the kind of all the positive stuff. When I got further into it, there was a little bit of that pressure, and I started to break away. I never stopped meditating. And I was probably 20, from the time I was 20 years old, I had a nice meditation practice and yoga practice.
And then how did you get from there to India and the other places? And you started this thing, which you now call yoga therapy, which this book's about, for stress and anxiety. Everyone's heard of yoga. What is yoga therapy? How's that different? And how did you go from this Irishman to yoga therapy?
Couple stops along the way. I was an overseas college student, so that's what had me in Taiwan. I went to a school that you only went overseas, called the Friends World College.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was very alternative. Like I went to Phillips Academy that we were discussing, and so that's very kind of, what would you say, high level education. And then I went to a somewhat liberal college, very small. My second place was Japan, and in Japan, I had a very strong transformation. I was looking into diplomacy as a career in the future, learning foreign languages, and really looking into world peace and how I could contribute that way. And I went to an event in Japan through some friends' family, and they asked this question, why is there war? And I didn't know that was going to be happening on this retreat. And the answer was, when there's anger or disruption in us, we fight on all kinds of levels. And that kind of had that Buddhist element to it, where when we make ourselves peaceful, the world will become peaceful. And that set me on further down that inner journey. I was meditating at the time already. I was doing some yoga, which caused me to feel really centered, and getting into learning about Buddhism and such. And I took it down that road. The story is a little long here, so
it's okay.
Yeah,
we have time.
This is for another book, right? In the future. In this whole process, this one Buddhist monk said, you should learn more yoga before you go further with all of your other stuff, to get all parts of your life in order. And he felt that he was missing that, like a physical practice as well as some of the other aspects of yoga. So he sent me to a place in India. And being young and unattached, at 23 or 4, I went to India, and that's where I was introduced to yoga therapy.
So describe what yoga therapy is.
Well, most of us know yoga as going to yoga class where you do some stretches. Yoga therapy would say that would be your health element of yoga. And they would look at other aspects of your lifestyle that would be equally as important for your overall well-being. And for you to find the inner peace, you would want your nutrition, your relationships, your attitude of work, your psychological understanding of life, your past healing, even your understanding of finances, of social graces, everything, single part of your life would be quote unquote yoga.
So really, from as I'm listening to it, I'm framing it because this is a show about success, that you're becoming a master
Yep.
in all the areas of your life, not just the physical, which I think what most people associate yoga with,
Right.
is putting yourself in postures that they think most people can never achieve. You always see these people in their yoga posters and they're doing something that's
Yeah.
seemingly impossible. But as I've studied yoga a little bit, and my wife used to teach it, is that each posture has a certain energy that it releases, biochemical things happen in the body, and so that's the physical part of it. So talk about some of these other dimensions of how you approach those.
Well, if definitely, all kinds of things happen when you do the poses, and there's a concept in yoga that I sometimes think, after chakras, karma, and some other Sanskrit words that are in English, this word chitta should be in English. It's C-I-T-T-A in phonetics, and it's the mind-body complex. And there's no word in English for that. We say psychology, physiology, right? What other subjects do we have? Biology. We have all the different subjects. In yoga, there is no concept for that. It's all one. So your mind and your body are considered the same thing, like in the same sphere. So everything you do, and then we technically look at our state of mind, our deeper thoughts, like are our values connected to our actions? When they are, they would say that's yoga. So right now, everything you're doing, you're helping people with the success, you're helping empower people, right? You're teaching, you're guiding, you're showing compassion. We would say that's all yoga, because that's bringing you in touch with, if we look at your lower, higher self, however you structure your spirituality, you're practicing that all the time. So we would say you're doing yoga all the time.
So what is when you translate the word yoga, what's the root word of that? What does it mean?
Right, the word union.
Union, yeah.
Yeah, you know that, right?
Yeah,
the union of mind and body, or excuse me, mind and body, lower self, higher self. Right, and that's what we would be after. And again, as you were saying, it's when there's that harmony that a person really finds their essence and then becomes their best self. So you could argue that thinking the resources from yoga and balancing your life sets you up to be the true you, which is the best you.
Now, you've been to all these other countries over in Asia, and you've studied yoga and Buddhism and all of this.
Yeah.
And people back here, most people will probably not have that experience.
Right.
Given that you were kind of in the motherland, if you will,
Yeah.
where all this evolved from,
Sure.
what advice would you give to the average person who thinks they know something about yoga, maybe doesn't really fully know as much as you'd like them to know?
I came back from Asia, and I literally needed a couple of years to reintegrate, almost, because I was so immersed for 5 years of my life. God bless my parents for having a little faith, because they weren't sure. I came back with a pretty full beard, as you might imagine. Obviously I was a straight, no drugs or any of that. It's completely pure, if anything, too pure for them. And during that reintegration time, one of the hardest things for me was that I was somewhat alone. So I was doing yoga, and now I was all alone. And that's the big difference. In the countries, whether it be in the Buddhist countries or in India where they do yoga, you're always with other people. So although we see yoga as a class we go to, and we might make some friendships, but by and large, we go home after class or we go to the next thing. And that is like, once again, isolating us a little bit. There's our physical yoga practice. Then we go visit friends. So the context and the relationships and the personal growth is somewhat a little out of context. So I would like to always tell people that you're doing the yoga to help increase your awareness so that you can understand yourself better, which then causes healing or your potential to manifest. And because we don't have the same societal setup as these practices are used in in Asia, we lose a little bit of the personal growth side or the accountability side.
Yeah.
We can just go to a class anytime we want. Nobody checks in on us. but over there you're like a big family at your yoga center.
Really?
Yeah, they use the word sangha for a school or,
Right, right.
well, you could also call it extended family of people who are also going to make sure you're doing the practices that you made a commitment to, so you get a lot of support. That would be the bigger thing.
I get that.
Yeah.
My wife belongs to a Buddhist meditation center.
Oh, neat.
And talk about the Sangha and
Yeah.
the family, and they really do support each other in a deep way. I'm just thinking about the difference between Ireland, where you go to the pub and that's your family,
That's true.
versus going to
Yeah.
a Sangha, which is probably a lot healthier for you. But that need to connect and be part of something and have people
Definitely.
supporting you on your path,
Yes.
especially when it's a little bit different than what maybe the norm of the culture around you is doing as
Right.
we move toward a more holistic approach. So I think about this as a comprehensive, holistic approach to yoga. And talk about some of the benefits you've seen with your clients and students as a
Yeah.
result of doing that approach.
Yeah, we see pretty amazing changes. And I'd have to say, of all the different areas that I've been discussing, when somebody changes their attitude of work, I almost think I could get more healing benefits for people if they didn't come for yoga pose class, even though there's so many physical things and positive things that happen from that a lot of our viewers will know about or have experienced now that so many people have done yoga. But when you get somebody who's struggling at their job, not really enjoying it, to take the same job, to shift their perspective, to start practicing their inner values while at the same job they've always been at, and they make that switch and they open themselves up, their stress just drops, like way, very low. And then if you add the yoga practices with them, their lives usually just blossom.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
it's really
great.
wonderful feeling, and to see, and helping people with making good nutritional choices. We've seen tons of people decrease or eliminate different medications. Their doctors are, always asking, "What have you been doing?" And the person on depression medication, 10 years, she's now at the lowest dosage. Other people have completely removed themselves from various things. So it is very rewarding. I could just do that all day long.
I get that. I get that. I was thinking about someday doctors will write a prescription on their little prescription pad, join the such and such yoga center. So
A woman wrote an article, a doctor once wrote an article, she says maybe the prescription of the future will be, yoga and good nutrition. Yeah.
good. We'll talk about that, because obviously, you talk about health and nutrition and fitness and all of that. You look at the healthcare system. I mean, I see some shifts beginning to occur.
Yeah.
How do you relate your work to that?
Well, I think that there is a little bit of a colliding now that we're starting to individualize things. Most of the ancient, even herbalism, Western herbalism, Eastern herbalism, Ayurveda, they always look at each individual and really map them out, and then they customize whatever program they give to that specific individual, which is what we would do in yoga also. And I think that is a really big thing. And then a person taking responsibility for their own health and realizing that making some of these changes, breathing deeply, relaxing each day, when you start to take control of things with a little bit of guidance, you can make profound changes that people would never realize possible.
So you teach yoga, you train yoga teachers, you're speaking, you're doing seminars, all of that. I mean, I have spent just a few hours with you, but have been really impressed by who you are and what you're doing and the depth of understanding that you have. So if someone wanted to work with you to experience some of the things we're talking about here, where do they go? How do they find out?
They can visit our website.
Which is?
It's yogalifeinstitute.com. Just the name of our institute.
yogalifeinstitute.com.
Yep, all one word. Certainly all the books are available. You can look up Bob Butera and a couple books will pop up.
Okay. So if you go to Amazon.com, these three books will pop up,
They
and I
should
think there's
pop up
probably
quickly.
more coming from what I can tell.
You got it.
So this is a great book, Yoga Therapy for Stress and Anxiety. And I'm just going to remind people of the other two books, The Pure Heart of Yoga, The Essential Steps for Personal Transformation, and Meditation for Your Life. I would have to say that meditation and yoga have both had huge impacts in my life. The title for Chicken Soup for the Soul came in a meditation. So,
That's
which
amazing.
it was preceded by doing some yoga poses before I sat down.
Great,
So
great.
it's all very good. So thank you
Excellent.
for
Well, thanks
joining
very
me.
much, Jack.
Yeah, I wish we had more time. I could
Yeah.
spend hours with you. So visit his website, read his books, take your life to the next level, and become healthy and integrated and whole and relaxed and stress-free so that you can be the best you can be. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this message.